Hi guys and girls on YouTube and welcome to my channel. I've just got about 20-25 minutes spare here because I'm waiting for a parts delivery. I can't move on with anything until these parts arrive. So I thought we'd just get a quick video in. So what I'm going to be looking at is this vintage TV. Now it's actually said to be working, but there is a slight catch with it. So let's just pause the camera and I'll go and fetch it. I've made a space behind on my bench. I'll go and fetch it out and then we'll take a quick look. Right, so this is the telly we're going to be looking at. A little colour portable. It is a Decca. Before they got taken over by Tatung. This is one of the original Deccas. I think it's a 120 chassis. I'm not 100% sure till I get the back off. Now I've got this off a friend of mine called Alan, and Alan's got a house full of TVs because years ago, many years ago, he used to sell TVs, but I can't remember what he said. He had some fallout with the man who used to buy them, and the man who used to buy them ended up not buying them anymore. So Alan's got all these TVs in his house, but they've been stood there for donkey's years. Now if we take a look at this, he did say this set was working, and here's the catch. There is a sticker on the front, not on the front, on the top, which is very faded, but you can just about make it out, and it says working 16th of the 7th 1995. So although it says working, it was working 30 years ago. It doesn't mean to say it's going to be working now because it's stood that long. So the first thing we need to do is get the back off and have a look inside, and then get the service manual out. And I can see if he's actually done any work to it, or if there's any components been replaced. Also we'll need to reform the main smoothing block before we turn it on, power it up. But let's just get the back off it first. So the first thing you'll notice, he's got 30 years of dirt on the back. Let's have a look what it says there. Made in England. That's when we used to make TVs many years ago, and the model appears to be is it a DM1451? Yeah, that's what it looks like. We've got a plug on it, non-shrouded pins of course. Just 4 screws. There's 2 screws under the handle, and there should be 3 screws under there. 5 screws. Right, let's get the back off it then, have a look inside what state it's in first. Right, so there we go. That is the back off, and I've got to say I'm slightly disappointed with this. I thought it was a Decca 120 and it isn't. It looks more like a Decca 140 or a Decca 145 chassis, which is a little bit disappointing. Now I think these had a TDA 4600, so we'll have to check some resistors in there before we turn it on. And also I've noticed on the top of the reservoir capacitor there, we do appear to have that's better, turn that light out. We've got dried out electrolyte on the top, so that might need changing. That might have dried up. There's a cap there, I think that'll need testing. But let's have a look underneath, because what I hadn't noticed before, there's another sticker under there. So I presume this has been repaired, and when it was repaired, the sticker on top's been placed, but I don't know what it'll say under there. I don't know if I'll be able to read that. So the best thing to do, looks a bit dirty, is to have a look under the chassis what's been done. Well, the good news is we have a Toshiba, although it says Tatung, I'm sure it'll be Toshiba, because Black Stripe was a Toshiba patent, and them rubbers are nice and soft. so that's not a cause of concern. But let's get this out and look underneath. Right, so what can you see underneath? Well, it's relatively all untouched under here and original. So for the TDA 4600, we're going to, there's usually 2 resistors connected to pin 4. We're definitely going to have to change them before we turn it on. But if you look there, it's had, that's the chopper transformer, isn't it? Right, it's had a new chopper transistor fitted, and there I can see a new resistor's been fitted. What's that? R810. Now I wonder if that connects to pin 4. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that connects to pin 4, so that looks like it's already been changed. I would have changed both of them, R808 and R810 at the same time, but obviously Alan's not done that. There's a resistor there, one end's factory and the other end's been soldered, so that's just been unsoldered one end to test it. And it also looks like it's had a new degaussing resistor, but really, and the legs on that have never been cut. Look how long them are, so that'll have to be cut off. But first, oh, I can see the odd dry joint that's been done there, look. And this flux will need all cleaning off to make it nice. And I'm not sure about the main reservoir capacitor. There's some more dry joints been done, look. So first let's turn attention to that resistor there, R810. And what was the other? R808, was it? Yeah, there, 808, 810. Right, let's turn it over. Right, look at that there. What can I say about that, eh? That's R810, the one that's been changed. And R808, I think, is it that one there? So the first thing to do is get that out and change them. But I'll just have to dig out the service manual first and make sure that is the right value for that. And that cap, you see where it's leaked, and definitely looks well past its best. And there might be a couple of caps here next towards this hot running heatsink that'll need changing, or well, changing or checking, and that one will need checking as well. So what I might do is I might come back to this tomorrow and do a little bit of work on it tomorrow. But I think I'll just get the manual out ready just to check them values. Apart from that, it looks pretty much alright in here. Right, so I've just checked and these 2 resistors are the right value. There should be 100k and 82. So we just need to change them first. But unfortunately the delivery has just arrived from France, so we're going to have to leave this and come back to it tomorrow sometime. Right, so we're back onto this again for a few minutes. I fitted 2 new resistors here. I've not cleaned it up yet, but there's one and there is the other. But look what else I've cut them leads off the chopper transistor there. Look what else I've just noticed. Let's see if we can zoom in. You see there, that has been desoldered to break the power from the fuse, obviously for fault finding, but he's forgot to solder it back up. So although it might have worked, it probably wouldn't have worked for very long like that. So we'll need to solder that back up, and then I'll make a decision what we do with the smoothing cap and get it all cleaned up, of course. Right, well, surprisingly enough, the main electrolytic, the reservoir capacitor that's been leaking electrolyte, actually tests out alright. It's well within spec. So even though it needs changing, I think that means that we can still go ahead and plug this in. Right, so what I'm going to do is just reform the cap first. It is actually coming up slowly. I'll just leave this running while I do some other jobs and come back in a couple of hours. Right, so here we are, back a couple of hours later. 100%, that will do for me. Right, let's get the flux cleaned up on that board, and then you won't be able to tell anything's been changed on it. And there we go, that's the finished result after it's been cleaned up with flux remover. That's a new resistor there, that's another one there, that's the transistor I've cut the legs off and cleaned up. If you look at that, you cannot tell that anything has been changed there. It's made such a nice job. My favourite flux remover. Now obviously in an ideal world we'd change that because it'll just carry on leaking over time, but it tests alright, it's reformed alright, so it's good enough to plug this set in and see what happens now. So it does need, as you can see, a really good clean out as well, but let's just see if it comes on first. I mean, it was said to be working in 95, 30 years ago, but that doesn't mean to say it's going to work now. There could be other capacitors that have deteriorated, but all the ones I've checked seem okay for ESR and value. So let's just go for the plug-in before we do anything else. Right, so here we go, we're plugged in. The on and off switch is pull out for on, push in for off. In fact, what I might do is just turn it on here at the mains. Then we can stand back if anything happens. So a little bit of volume. 3, 2, 1. And I did hear the HT. Yeah, and there you go, on it comes. And the grayscale looks really good. So let's just turn it off and get a signal connected to it now. Right, so here we go, the skybox is on. Now this is quite a nice example because we've still got the tuning door, it's not been lost over time. And look at that, there's an extra bonus. We've even got the proper tuning tool, which I'm not going to bother using because it's very fiddly. I'll just get a screwdriver, but that goes into there and that allows you to tune it. So let's just forget about that for a minute and get a screwdriver, put that back in there. Right, here we go. Just see if I need tuned in first. No, don't look like it, so let's try channel 1. And actually we need a slightly bigger screwdriver than that one. That didn't fit. This one fits perfect though. There's the skybox on, yep. Actually, it might help if we plug the skybox in the back of the telly. Yeah, how many times have I done that? Plugged it into the socket on there. Right, let's try again. Yeah, we're not far off there. Right, let's try number 1 again. Right, that's reached the end. Oh, there we go, straight away. Look at the picture on that. That is amazing. Let's find the channel that works. Oh, turn the skybox off.
Years old, and I began by asking one of the veterans what he thought about the moniker of it being a forgotten art.
Let's turn the volume down a bit. Right, so we've got colour. Grayscale is pretty much perfect. Plenty of colour, that's how I like it. Perhaps a little bit of switch cleaner, and there it needs. Brightness, yeah, plenty of brightness. And contrast, all they need is a bit of switch cleaner. And that is going to be one perfect TV. Look at that. Now, even though that cap tested alright and it reformed to 100%, I can actually smell a smell, and that case is very, very hot. So it does need changing, even though it reformed alright. Let's just measure the surface temperature, bearing in mind it's only been on a few minutes. Look at that. We're nearly up to 80 degrees centigrade, and if you look at the top, you can see where there's a white patch, it's actually wet now, and that's oozing electrolyte. So just because that reformed alright doesn't mean to say it's any good. That definitely needs changing. In fact, we probably can't turn this on again because there is a danger of that exploding. So I don't know where I'm going to get one of them from. We're certainly not going to get one with the same pin out, but I might be able to get something that'll go in. Let's take a quick look at the top. Are we in focus? Can you see it there bubbling? Yeah, you can see it now, can't you? Left on, that could very well have exploded, and that would have been a mess if that went off with a bang. Now, a question somebody asked in one of my other videos is, how do you remove the anode cap from the CRT, and how do you discharge the CRT safely? So we'll do the anode cap first. Now, some caps just plug in and they just pull it, and it's a very tight fit. But if you look at this one, it has two bits that spring out. What you have to do is squeeze them to get them out the button in the CRT. In fact, if I show you in this one, this will give you a better idea. You can see them sticking out. They need to be squeezed, and what you do is you push a screwdriver under there, and you actually push that spring inwards, and then it will release from the anode cavity. Now, to discharge the CRT, what you need is a big, well insulated screwdriver like that, and a crocodile clip. And what we're going to do first is we're going to clip a lead onto this spring like so, because that is your earth, and then you put that onto your big well insulated screwdriver like so, and then keeping your hands well away from that, you need to slide the screwdriver under there and touch that middle contact, and quite often you'll hear a hissing noise or a crack as it discharges. And when you've done that, just hold it there for a few seconds. come and focus. And now if you lift that up, you'll be able to see where you need to push with a screwdriver to release it. When you've done that, it should just, I'm holding the camera at the same time, it should just pop out of there now. You have to be quick with this. That's it. There you can see your two springs there. That's also very dirty. That needs a good clean. Now when you're cleaning it, be careful not to rub off this red coating. That's some sort of anti-tracking paint that stops it sparking across. Once you've got to that point and you've got that off, as quick as you can, clip that into there like that and leave it for quite a while, and I'll come back to that in a minute. I'll tell you why we do that, but just let me draw a little diagram and I'll explain why you need to discharge the CRT. So with the aid of this old broken 14-inch CRT, I'm going to give you a little practical demonstration, because I know people like demonstrations. But the first thing we're going to do is going to take these rubber wedges off, because they'll be useful, because you'll not get any of these anymore. And also the degaussing coil here, I'm going to save that as well. Right, so let's take a look at this old CRT now I've cleaned it up. Now I'll spin it round. You can see that that's your glass there. And this coating here, this is an electrically conductive paint. We call that the Aquadag, and that's painted onto the outside of this glass, and that is actually connected to earth by this spring and this strap that goes across here to make an electrical connection. So I've just drawn a quick picture of the a quick picture of the tube. On the diagram, let's draw this electrically conductive coating onto here, which is on the outside of the bowl. So there we go. I've used a pink marker to represent the Aquadag, the conductive coating on the outside. Now where the EHT connector is, that links through to a silver coating on the inside, which is the final anode accelerant voltage is applied to, and it's applied through that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take this outside and we're going to smash it, hopefully, because this is very thick glass, and then I'll give you a look at the inside. But for now, let's just draw it onto this diagram with a green pen. Now if you look at that, the silver coating inside the tube is electrically connected to the anode button. But let's take this outside and see if we can smash this open. Now just to point out one safety thing, with smashing this it doesn't matter because it's already broke, but in a good one like this, the inside of this is under a very, very high vacuum, so you don't want to be smashing it by hitting it here. What we used to do is just knock the neck off, but you definitely don't want to be trying to break a good one with a hammer. So I've got my goggles on, I'll come back in a minute. Right, so that's your broken tube. Now interestingly enough, the inside of this is coated with a graphite type of material. They used to be coated with like a silver paint, a conductive paint, but here you can see that there, that is the anode cavity. If we look at the glass, it's very, very thick, and that connects through to this conductive coating, which I'll just demonstrate quickly with a meter. So here we go. If we just put two wires onto there, you can see we've got a resistance. That's the inside. And if we put one into there and then we put another on the top, I'm trying to do this without cutting myself, that's why it's, but you can see we've got a connection anyway between the outside and the inside, which is under vacuum. So if you look at this, we've got two coatings, one inside, one outside, separated by the glass. So we can draw a diagram here. You've got the outside and the inside, and then the glass down the middle. We've actually made a capacitor. So your CRT is nothing but a giant capacitor. So we've got ground on the aquedag end, and on this end we've got 25,000 volts. And that, what that does, that giant capacitor, it serves to smooth the EHT supply. So you can see now why a charged up CRT is so dangerous, because it's basically just a massive great capacitor. In fact, and it's probably got a capacitance of about half a nanofarad, 500 pf. In fact, this shorting link here has been on here overnight, so what we could do now is we could measure the capacitance between there and the aquedag by just getting another crocodile clip and connecting that to a capacitance meter. So if you look at that, I've got the yellow connection onto this spring which is connected to the aquedag, and I've got the white connection to the anode cavity. Let's press the button and see what. Now there will be a little bit of capacitance in that wire, we can ignore that. Let's just press the button and see what we've got. I think it should be about 500 pf. I've actually got a lot more than that. We've got 1.1 nanofarad. So you can see now 1.1 NF charged up to 25,000 volts. That is why a charged up CRT is so dangerous, and that's why you must discharge it before you touch this middle here. Now a lot of people think that when you've actually discharged the capacitance of the tube by shorting that to ground, that it's safe to handle. Now that is a big mistake, and I'll tell you for why. Because there's a phenomenon called dielectric absorption that happens in capacitors. Now I can't explain that to you because the science of it is well beyond my understanding, but to put it basically in simple terms, once you've discharged that capacitor and you take that short off, a charge will magically start to reappear on that anode cavity. And I'll see if we can set up a little demonstration with an electrolytic capacitor in a minute. But after you've discharged that, if you leave it 5 minutes, you'll find it's charged itself up again, and there'd be still enough voltage in there to give you a nasty shock. So let's see if we can set up a little demonstration. I'm not going to do it with this because we're going to be playing with very high voltages. We'll just do it at with an ordinary electrolytic at 250 volts, but it'll give you the idea anyway. Right, so here we go. I'm nearly ready to demonstrate dielectric absorption, but I've just drawn this quick diagram. What I'm going to do is I'm going to charge up a capacitor to about 250 volts, and I'm going to connect a digital multimeter across the capacitor when it's fully charged. And then what we're going to do with 2 crocodile clips, we're going to short the capacitor out till there's no charge in it, and then we're going to take the short off. And what you should see is when we short it out, it goes to 0. When I take the leads off, the charge on the capacitor will start to build up on its own. So let's move to another bench, because the capacitor is not going to be like being shorted out, but at least you'll see it flash, and you'll see that the DVM drops to 0. So here we go. You can see there that the capacitor is only connected to the meter, which charged up to 230, 240 volts. The charger's leaking away slowly because the meter is drawing current, but this is a shorting lead here, and I'm just going to touch that on there, hopefully without touching my finger. You'll see a big flash and that should drop to 0. That's it. And then I take the short off and you'll see the capacitor is magically charging up on its own. Now the longer we leave it, the more charge will appear. It won't come up anywhere near the voltage it had before, but you can see the longer you leave it, the more it's rising, and that is caused by the phenomenon dielectric absorption. It's still rising. I'm not going to film this rising because it takes for ages, but let's just swap back to the TV. So that is why when you initially discharge a CRT, as soon as you take that off, the charge will start to build. So you've only got a few seconds to remove this cap because that voltage will be building up and building up, and about, say, an hour later there'll be quite enough charge that's rebuilt up on there to give you a nasty shock. And it's for that reason that once you've actually discharged the CRT and you take the anode cap off, then you need to put a shorting lead in like that and leave it, and the longer you leave it the better for safety. Now let's go to the cap, and if we look at that, it's still continuing to charge up. Like I say, the longer you leave it, the more charge it will attain. So one very last thing before we close this video. So here you've got a ground connection, and here you've got 25,000 volts. You need this surface to be nice and clean, because if you get any dirt or moisture on there, it could arc over it from there to there, and you could cause damage. I think in this particular set it usually takes out the frame output IC if you get a discharge between there and there. So if you're dealing with a CRT, after you've done all the safety procedures discharging it, make sure that's nice and clean, and also give that dirty thing a clean and make it look nice and shiny in there. But anyway, there you go. I hope you've enjoyed the video. All I've got to do now is find one of these capacitors. In fact, if I can't find an exact replacement, I might even have to drill that out and put another one in, because I think these have about 4 terminals on the bottom, so it's going to be difficult to actually get. Well, I'll have a look round first and see if I haven't got a replacement. You never know. Right, so I think we're getting near to closing this video now. I've not managed to find a cap. It's only 100 mic at 400 volts. I might have to drill it out in the end, so I can retain the original look. But if we come back to this, you can see it must have been, I don't know, 5 minutes or so since we did this demonstration, and it's rose to 13.3. Let's just short this out again. And once again, you see, it's beginning to charge up. So there we go, guys and girls on YouTube. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm going to close it now while I remove that capacitor and get drilling, and I'll catch you in the next one then. Many thanks for watching my channel, and goodbye.